What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Wednesday, November 9th of 2022? Before we get into anything fun, I got to do my little spiel like I always do. Like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, spread this word of mouth, and please go find us on the socials at the Alex Cuesta Show. Just go search it, and you'll find it. It's always there. It's everywhere, and we try to be as active as possible. Dave, hi.
Hello. Hi, it's been a week. It's been a week.
It has been a week.
It's nothing's happened, right?
No, nothing big has occurred. Okay. Nothing world changing. Nothing that potentially could be dangerous for the rest of the planet.
Yeah, but I figured it's been a very, very boring week.
Very boring. Has anything eventful happened for you in general?
No, absolutely nothing. I've worked. That's about it.
That sounds miserable. And you work and you play with poop all day, basically. So
yes.
Yeah, so that's no fun. I had a birthday yesterday. I'm a year older.
You did. Yes, you did.
About as uneventful as it gets. Once you get past
you're at the age where no one cares
past anymore. The age of 21. Once it's like, hey, I can legally drink, and then it's just kind of like 25, my car insurance goes down. Like that's like the next milestone. After that, nothing else matters. But before we jump into this show, I want to recommend everyone please go back listen to last week's show with Liz Habib. It was a really good show. We covered a whole bunch of stuff talking about the media. Liz is awesome. I recommend everyone also go give her a follow at Liz Habib and go listen to last week's episode. But this week, we have another good episode. Once again, Dave, our mediocrity of me and you are saved by having a fantastic guest on the show. Yes. We're excited as always. Jeff Charles. He's the host of a Fresh Perspective podcast. He's a contributor for Red State and Liberty Nation, and he just started a fantastic Substack called The Smattering. Mainly, I think, because Parody's back on Twitter and he's allowed to speak freely finally. And that's a fantastic thing. Jeff, what's going on, my man?
Hey, good. I'm glad you're having me on. I've been looking forward to this, and happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm not really big on the birthday thing. I figured I'd shout it out on my show here because why not? You have a show, you might as well do it. But normally I'm pretty low key. Went out to dinner with the family, didn't tell anybody at my job that it was my birthday. So I got to escape without the whole entire employees like awkwardly like, oh, yeah, happy. Here's a card. We all signed it. Half of you don't know who you are, but yeah. No, I avoided that. So that was good. But Jeff, we have a good amount to talk about because today is the day after the midterm elections. Now, I guess it's technically the day after because midterm elections in some states now go into February 27th, but it's technically the day after the elections. You have a great persona on Twitter. I first want to ask you, how fun was it to get people to actually fall for your whole entire I experienced racism from MAGA crowds at the voting booth thing that you did on Twitter? Because I was crying laughing when I was reading that.
You know what's funny about that? I was waiting in line to vote, and it was a long line. I had to wait for it. Probably the whole process took about an hour. Not horrible, but I was waiting, and I had my phone. I'm like, I might as well just jack around on Twitter because that's what I do anyway. I'm on Twitter all the time, and I'll post little jokes, quite often, but I don't always expect any of them to really catch on. Just with my following, they'll laugh at it and we'll go back and forth, and it's usually a lot of fun. So. I was thinking, with all this talk about Jim Crow 2.0 that we've been having to hear for the past year and a half, when Texas and Georgia and other southern states passed these election integrity laws. By the way, I don't even approve of everything that they passed, but as always, the left went overboard, pretending that these laws were somehow going to disenfranchise black voters.
The left? And talking down about black people as if they can't do the remedial things they're asked to do.
I was shocked because they never do that.
No,
I mean, so,
nicest people ever.
exactly. And so as a black man, I know there's been voter suppression. Like I know stuff happened in North Carolina that was wrong. Even in Texas, there's been some questionable issues. So I'm not saying voter suppression never happens or that it's never an issue. Just like voter fraud. I mean, voter fraud happens. It's not in every single election. It doesn't always decide elections. But when you see it, you want to do something about it. But my problem is that the progressives use the voter suppression issue, not because they wanted to appeal to black people, because that's one of the reasons, but really whenever there's an issue, whenever they want to attack somebody that they don't like, they always bring out the blacks all the time. And that's how I'm thinking that the approach is, let's just bring out the blacks and use racism to attack this person that we don't like. Perfect example, Joe Rogan. Remember when that video, all those videos came out with him using the N-word? They weren't mad about the N-word. They were mad because he had people on his show who didn't toe the line when it came to the COVID-19 pandemic. That was the only reason they cared about him saying the N-word, because he'd been doing it for years, honestly.
Yeah.
But so I like to make fun of that. I like to make fun of the left for doing that. And especially with voter suppression, when they started talking about Jim Crow 2.0, I was actually really angry because that downplays what people actually went through. My grandparents, their parents, and their parents actually went through Jim Crow 2.0 or Jim Crow in general.
And the funny thing about Jim Crow is they're kind of projecting their own history, because people don't like to talk that it was the Democrat Party that did Jim Crow and segregation. And they like to pull the nonsense over the eyes like, oh, well, the party's flipped. The whole proof that the party's in and flipped has been over these last few years when we've seen them promoting segregation again. They've quite literally been promoting segregation again.
Yeah, they're just doing it in the other direction.
Yeah.
And so I figured, maybe I'll just make a joke about being a black man in Texas and having trouble voting because of these election integrity laws. And so I can't even remember what I tweeted. I said something to the effect.
I'm going to go try and find it because it was so
funny. I basically said, voting as a black man in Texas is so hard. On the way to the polls, I had to get through a group of MAGA hat wearing people who didn't want me to vote. And they said, this is MAGA County. And I always figured stuff like that would give it away because everybody knows that reference, MAGA or MAGA country or whatever. That's Jussie Smollett, right?
Yep.
And so I'm thinking, okay, I'll just tweet this out and it'll be funny. Just like I didn't even put that much thought into it. Then I checked the tweet again, and it's got a bunch of retweets and a bunch of comments from people who actually thought that I was a Democrat pretending that I was experiencing voter suppression, that I was pulling off a Jussie Smollett thing. And I'm like, I mean, I made it so obvious. And I think most people got the joke.
Yeah.
But And a lot of them didn't get it at first, but then they ended up getting it. So I started tweeting more stuff in that vein, just kind of exaggerating more and more so that they'll get it. Hey, this is a joke. I'm making fun of the people that you don't like. I even took a picture of the people ahead of me in line and then took a picture of myself with a really sad expression, like an exaggerated sad expression on my face so that people would know, okay, this is a goof.
Yeah.
Didn't work. People still thought that I was trying to pull off a Jussie Smollett.
I love the one person that commented that they were actually a hat. They were actually the hat on one of the people that was doing the suppression. Not that they were there, not that they were the hat of one of the people. And people took it seriously. And I think the best part about this, it's not even the liberals that responded. It was the boomer Republicans and diehards that were like, stop doing this. And you're trying to put on this fake voter suppression. And like, I'm just sitting there looking, it's like, you don't know who Jeff is.
Not at all.
Exactly. And you're right. A lot of it, and I hate to use that term boomer, but it is tend to be older people who don't understand how social media works.
Sometimes it's appropriate.
Yeah. So they think that, that this is like a real thing. And then, again, most people I think got the joke because I had a lot of people laughing. I had like over 20,000 likes, and you're not going to like something that, like a scam like that. Yeah. So I think most people understood what I was doing, but it's just amazing in 2022 how hard it is to do satire without people thinking it's real. And that's always been a thing. I mean, The Onion's been around for a long time and people have thought their articles were real even before things got crazy.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah, but now things are just so ridiculous that it's hard to exaggerate to the point where people will be like, okay, he's using humor to make a point. I mean, I posted other tweets about how people stole my Subway sandwich and I'm just so hungry. Not like they have to get it now.
Yeah.
And, the people who saw that tweet got it. But, I'm still getting responses on that tweet right now.
Did Stacey Abrams reach out to you about that? Did she reach out to you about that and make sure that you got your food and water back? That those evil Stacey Abrams, those evil Republicans that were taking away your food and water in line.
That's really what hurt my feelings. I didn't get so much as a DM, not even a it was awful.
You would think as a fellow Black woman that she would have reached out to you like, man, wow.
I mean, she should have showed solidarity in the struggle. And that's just yet another reason why I'm disappointed in her. But there are people on the left who thought it was real, too, especially in other countries. I had one of my followers DM me saying, because I guess she's in Australia, and she's like, you've got leftists in Australia retweeting this like it's actually happening. And I'm like, good God. I mean, I kind of cut them a little bit more slack because they don't know what things are like in America. So they just believe whatever they're told. Mm-hmm. But it's like, wow. I mean, but at the same time, because people might ask me, do you feel bad when people think it's real? I felt bad maybe like once, because in general, people get the joke. And honestly, you can't have satire without people thinking it's real. Yeah. I mean, on social media, you can even just be sarcastic and some people will think that you're serious. That's just the nature of the game. I can't really do a whole hell of a lot about that. And especially with this tweet, like I said, I didn't expect it to blow up. I didn't expect it to go viral. And then I'm like,
it obvious. You made it obvious, and people just don't like to read what's there sometimes.
Well, and some people are savvy enough to know that if they see a weird tweet, then you'll click on the bio to see, or you'll go through their timeline just for like a couple seconds to see if they post jokes a lot. I mean, and then when I saw that it was blowing up, I was like, well, I can't stop now. So when I got back home, I cut a video.
I know you did.
And again, I made it so obvious that this couldn't be serious, but people still, I said things like, I give a shout out to Martin Luther King Jr., and I'm just glad that him and my grandparents and their parents didn't have to go through what we're going through today. I want to give a shout out to civil rights leaders like Jussie Smollett and Sean King. And even then, some people thought that I was serious.
I feel like that's the best part, though.
I have
you can
the
keep
video,
pushing it and make it even more ridiculous and still have people believe it.
I have the video right
funny.
here.
Like, it starts being a little sad, then it gets funny again.
Let's play a little bit of the video. Let's play about 30 seconds of this video because I have it right here. And I listened to this and I was crying the whole time knowing what was going on. Let's listen to it real quick.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to cut this quick video if you've been following me on Twitter and what I've been talking about as far as my struggle as a black man in Texas to get to the ballot box to cast my vote, I did it. I overcame white supremacy. I'm one of the few black people in states like Texas and Georgia and others that managed to overcome white supremacy to exercise my right to vote as protected by the Constitution of the United States of America. And when I say America, I'm spelling that with the 3 Ks, not with the letter C, because that's what we're dealing with. We are dealing with widespread Jim Crow 2.0 to prevent people like me from voting. So I just wanted to let you guys know and give you guys some encouragement. Most of us won't be able to make it because you've got these MAGA extremists out there preventing us from voting, but some of us will. So it's important that we try. I want to give a shout out to people like Malcolm X.
We got to play this whole thing. This is fantastic, Jeff.
Marcus Garvey, who fought so hard for these rights. And I'm glad that people like them and my grandparents and my great-grandparents didn't have to go through what we go through today just to be able to cast a vote. But, I also want to give a shout out to people fighting in the struggle today. People like Sean King, Jussie Smollett. All of these people had to deal with the rampant white supremacy that still remains in America today. And it's very important that we still continue to fight in this struggle. They're still holding us down. So I just wanted to kind of give you that word of encouragement. I also wanted to basically let you know that it's going to be okay. And probably a lot of you are probably wondering who I voted for. And I'm just going to tell you, when I got to that ballot box, I voted for democracy. With the C, with the letter C, not with the 3 Ks. I voted for democracy, and I hope that you do the same. Thank you.
Jeff, that's incredible. If people haven't followed you yet, please go follow him at Jeff on the right. That you're the fact that if you look at you actually look like you're distraught. You're doing like a little bit of like the voice. Like you're a better actor than Jussie Smollett ever could have been. That was so good. I'm so happy I got to rewatch that. That was fantastic. So outside of that, let's get into the midterms now because we got a lot to talk about here. So right now, people on the right are acting like the Senate's lost. There's only 30 Republican senators right now, and that we just lost the House 300 to like 100. But it's not the case, right, Jeff? It wasn't great. It wasn't the red wave that we were basically promised. But if we think back, I don't know how many years ago, the whole entire blue wave talk, same exact thing happened to the Democrats. They set it up so big, and then Republicans really did well. Here, Republicans set this up so big, and Democrats really didn't do that well. They did okay. They did enough to stave off a giant wave, but it looks like they're still going to lose the House, and there's still a real chance that it's a 50-50, 51-49 Republican Senate. Again, it could be 51-49 Democrat, but it's going to be close either way. What are your feelings on the midterms and what went down last night on election night?
I wasn't too surprised. Earlier this year, I was expecting more of a red wave. And then the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. And that was always going to have an impact. I don't think that it was going to have the impact that the left wanted it to have, but they were able to leverage it. They did do a good job as far as messaging goes, as far as using that issue to get people to turn out. And, the exit polling showed that a good chunk of voters consider that to be one of their top issues. So I'm not really shocked. There was like a couple races that I was a little surprised about, like especially like Mayra Flores here in Texas.
Yeah.
And those 3 races with Monica de la Cruz, Cassie Garcia, Mayra Flores, those were highly anticipated because these were 3 Latinas running in districts in South Texas that normally go blue. And it didn't turn out the way that we thought. I mean, Monica de la Cruz won her race. Mayra Flores and Cassie Garcia didn't, although I wasn't surprised by Cassie Garcia because she was running against Henry Cuellar, who has been in that district since 2005. Okay. And he's the only remaining pro-life Democrat in Congress. Okay. And he's also tougher on the border. So in some ways, it's almost like having a Republican there, but he's left on other issues. So I think what happened is, we built this up and now Democrats are almost trying to make this sound like a victory. Yeah. Really what this was is just
Biden today. Biden said it was basically a victory. I'm looking forward to watching him duke it out. And then he went and had some more pudding.
He did. And I can't really blame them for seeing it that way because they expected to get swept too. I don't care what they were saying before. They expected to get swept too. But what this really turned out as is basically a regular midterm election where the House goes to the other party and possibly the Senate too. I do think that we could have done a lot better. I think that there were some serious mistakes made along the way, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But I think all in all, this was a good midterm election for Republicans. It means that Biden's not going to be able to get the agenda that he wants. And especially if the Republicans take back the Senate, that means, that kind of impacts the courts as well. So he's not going to be able to just put whatever judges up that he wants.
And I think it's, like you said, it's important. The House is kind of expected, and that's, the investigation side, the subpoena side, but it's kind of like the DOJ is not going to go along with anything they do. We know this. So they can do all they want. This is just going to be kind of like putting it out to America. And I think they need to be careful because if they're just seen as a House that only did committees to subpoena, to do this, to do that, and didn't really get anything done, didn't put any meaningful bills up to the Senate to maybe get denied or whatever, then in 2 years, it's going to be a referendum on them. And they're going to look at them and say, this House, all they did was witch hunt. And whether we believe that they're doing the right thing or not, it's going to look like they witch hunt. So they need to be careful there. They need to be smart. Yes. I don't know if Kevin McCarthy is the guy that's going to be smart. I don't trust Kevin McCarthy. He is your Mitch McConnell, your John Thune, your Lindsey Graham, uniparty Republican. He, and he does what he needs to do. He talks tough when he needs to. And then when he gets power, he's going to be, listen, we're expecting Boehner. I'm expecting Ryan. I'm not expecting anything special out of McCarthy, but they do need to be careful. Your guys like Jim Jordan, your guys in the Freedom Caucus, they need to be smart. They can't just go for blood. They can't just only do that. They need to put meaningful bills in front of the Senate and then have the Senate shoot it down or let it get to the president's desk and have him shoot it down, because that's a campaign thing in 2 years.
Yes.
We put these in front, not just we only subpoenaed. So I think that's important. But I also think getting the Senate is significantly more important, because there you have the power of the purse. Outside of everything else, you have the power of the purse. You could then stop funding for so much nonsense that have been pushed through, especially NPR. Cut every freaking dime to that state media that is the leftist media, NPR. Let them keep funneling it through CNN and MSNBC. Don't do it to our taxpayer dime. But, I agree with you. There were mistakes made. I thought the messaging was terrible. I didn't think that Republicans ran on anything. That's the problem. They didn't run on anything. Democrats ran on crap. They ran on abortion, they ran on J6, and they ran on Trump. But it was something. Republicans ran on nothing. They ran on, we just won't do what they've done, and Biden's a dead guy. That's what they ran on. And it was a terrible platform. How much is there to blame on Donald Trump here? How much is there to blame on Mitch McConnell? How much is there to blame on Kevin McCarthy? And, Steve Scalise isn't getting out of this. You're the majority. You're the minority whip. The whip's important in Congress. How much is the leadership to blame here? Ronna McDaniels and all that, as well as everybody else.
I think, with their messaging this year, and this is going to sound weird, but I thought it was better than what they normally do. Now, that's not a high bar.
That's not a high bar.
But I thought that they did much better with messaging than they have in the past. And I'm really hoping that this is a trend of them improving in that regard. I saw them being more aggressive on crime, especially on education, the stuff that's happening in the schools. DeSantis, even my governor, Greg Abbott, to a certain extent, and others were very good about hammering that home. And then when I go to conservative media, same thing. They were going on the offensive way more often. And I think they learned that from the Orange Man, What is Bad? I think that he taught them that lesson. And you do have more Trumpian figures in the party right now and in the conservative media. So I think they did okay there. But what you were speaking to before, when you talk about, they can't just go in there and just do investigations. They have to put forth legislation. They have to put forth policy, let it get shot down.
To do their job.
Do their job. And that actually translate into this messaging issue, because while they got better at going on the offensive, they fell back into the habit that they have not broken in decades. And that habit is complaining about Democrats, and that's it. That's all. So here's what'll happen. The American people will say something like, you know what? We're dealing with this issue. Let's say it's crime, skyrocketing crime rates. It sucks. Democrats say, well, defund the police. Oh, wait, just kidding. That doesn't work politically.
The Republicans said that, not us.
Republicans said that, not us. And Joe Biden, Joe Biden says, I'm going to pour money into police and try to get away from that label. Other Democrats did the same. But then we've got these woke DAs. Oh, let's have criminal justice reform. Okay. There are issues with our justice system. What'll happen is that there will be a problem. The Democrats will put forth a solution. A bad solution, a silly solution, a solution that would expand the size of government. In most cases, they're not good ideas. Republicans rightly will criticize those ideas. They'll rip them apart. They'll debunk them. They'll debunk the lies. They'll do all that stuff. And that's great. And then that's it. So what happens is that the American people are still left with that problem. And if the choice is between a bad solution and nothing, eventually, even if Republicans may win for a while on that, they're going to go back to Democrats, because at least Democrats are willing to talk about the problem, are willing to try to do something about it. And whatever we believe about Democrats, I am more cynical. Yes, they're just doing it to get power, but still they're presenting something to the American people. Republicans will not come up and say, that plan sucks. here's our plan as an alternative. Here's what's going to work. Here's what's been tried and tested. American people choose this, don't choose what they're doing. And that's where they've always gone wrong. And I can kind of see signs of them trying to do something, like Kevin McCarthy came out with that Commitment for America.
It was bad.
But again, I mean, that was very nebulous. It was vague. And I understand why, because he had to walk that tightrope between the moderates and the American First populist crowd. Yep. But they rolled out the plan, and then we never really heard about it again. You didn't have these candidates going to their districts saying, this is what we're going to do when you elect us. You didn't have conservative media parroting that message saying, this is what Republicans are talking about. This was not the Contract for America in 94, because back then they actually did what we're talking about. There's like, they were on message. They were on points like Democrats are. And so it's almost like they just threw it out there just to say that they did something. No, that's not going to work. You might squeak by an election with that in one season, but if you get into office and you do nothing but complain, you deserve to lose. So they need to get out of that habit. They need to become better salespeople. Yes, attack dogs are great, but even Trump himself, he was an attack dog. But remember, when he ran in 2016, what do you remember? What was he going to do when he got elected? I'm going to build the wall. Yep. I'm going to lower some taxes. I'm going to take on immigration. We're going to deport people who are dangerous.
We're going to get out of nonsense wars.
We're going to get out of nonsense wars. We're going to drill for our own energy. We're going to make NATO pay their fair share. We can all say that by memory, because Trump is a master persuader, and he drilled that point home ad nauseum. His people drilled that point home ad nauseum. So we knew exactly what he was going to do, and they liked it, and he got elected. Republicans haven't learned that lesson yet.
So how much of this is also on, I think a lot of it is on Mitch McConnell, because he controls the money during the elections that go to people running for Senate. And we saw what happened to Blake Masters. Blake Masters is a senator right now if Mitch McConnell continues to fund him. And there's no doubt in my mind that I think he's still losing currently, and I don't think they've called it quite yet. But there's no doubt in my mind that if Mitch McConnell puts money behind the man and really gets out and promotes him, because he was a guy that's doing exactly what you said. He was out there. He was on message. He was saying he was going to do. He wasn't afraid to take things on like that. And it was just, whatever reason, I don't know why McConnell, I know why McConnell didn't do it. He's a uniparty member and he doesn't want to rock the boat. But it's just discouraging to see that. And it's annoying because we have so many good people on the right, where I think this is what the Democrats and the leftists, I'm not even calling Democrats anymore because they're not Democrats.
Right.
They're leftists. They are Marxist leftists. What the Marxists do is they use those within their group that have any sort of brain for kind of programming their people, and they bring them into the fold and ask, what's our best way to do this? Where the Republicans don't do that. You have a guy like Corey DeAngelis, which is fantastic on getting things done in terms of school reform. Now, I don't always agree with him saying always go private, because I really want them to make sure there's a lot of protections there, because private schools suck too. They create Ivy Leaguers, and Ivy Leaguers were literally the worst amongst us right now. So there's got to be a smart way, but at least Corey has a plan. Why wasn't the Republican Party tapping into an individual that is obviously on their side and saying, what should our messaging be? Yours has worked. Let's work together. Why aren't they talking to James Lindsay, who voted for Obama twice, but realizes that the left is insane right now and is willing to help and has worked to create legislation with Republicans in terms of CRT and woke agendas? Why are they not going to James? Hey, new discourses is mighty popular. What are you doing? What are the key words? How should we be explaining this to people in layman's terms? They don't do that. The left does. They tap into BLM. They tap into their leaders. They tap into their people that are getting the message across to the people. And it's just so stupid that there's so many smart people on the right, but the leadership is idiotic. It drives me nuts.
They won't use them. Even people like Scott Pressler. I saw him tweet out today that he's going to keep going, and if the Republicans reach out to him, great, and if not, he'll do it on his own. I'm like,
Florida is all Scott Pressler. That he is responsible for Florida right now. What he did.
He is. He is. But the thing is, he shouldn't have to say that. He shouldn't even have to entertain the idea that maybe the Republicans won't call him. But that's what they do. You've got
Where the hell is Ronna McDaniel? She talks such a good game. Where is she?
Exactly. Well, I mean, the problem with the RNC is that you have a lot of gatekeeping going on, and I see this in the Black outreach space. There are people in that organization that you and I have never heard of that love to have their position. They don't want anybody else coming in to threaten that. They care more about their own power than they do about actually affecting change. So you have somebody like a Corey DeAngelis. I mean, he'll answer the call. Like if somebody calls him, he's coming. He came here to Texas. I mean, earlier this year, he was instrumental in Arizona passing their school choice, and I believe he's going to be instrumental in Texas passing their school choice measures as well. Yeah. But the RNC, there's still too much establishment in the RNC. There's not enough. Yeah. And I'll say this, I'm not really a MAGA person, but there's not enough of that in the RNC right now. There aren't people who want to move forward. You just have people who want to maintain the status quo because that's where they're comfortable. That's why you have the people from the Lincoln Project. That's why they're so angry because they had a cush job.
The pedophile project?
The pedophile project, yes. They didn't really have to do much. They were failures, and Trump came in and basically made them irrelevant. But but he was addressing a problem that still exists because there's still these people on the Republican side who just aren't there to make change. And honestly, even when Ronna McDaniel's gone, I don't think that they're going to replace her with somebody who's actually going to affect that change. And it's
Tim Scott, leave Congress and please go take over. Tim Scott, we need him. He would be so good as the RNC chair.
Tim Scott, there's a lot of people. They basically need to clean house. I mean,
Tim Scott, Mike Lee, one of these guys that are just amazing in Congress.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, and even it's tough because, again, a lot of this stuff is entrenched, and a lot of it is that people don't even know that this is happening even within the RNC. So it's like that stuff, like you could talk about drain the swamp. That swamp needs to be drained because we can put forth all these candidates that we want, and they can be great, but that's really not going to happen. And even the few that get through, it's not going to make much of a difference if our leadership is still lacking a vision or lacking a sense of, we need to move forward and evolve as a party. You're right. Ronna McDaniel talked a big game about that, about building a bigger tent. And what they do is they'll make some overtures in that direction. And then once election season is gone, that's it. Like they have centers in Black communities right now, and I fully expect those to be closed after the midterms.
Ridiculous. So I want to talk about a quote that you tweet that you interacted with from Robbie Starbuck, who was a rising star on the right, and I still think can be. Robbie's he ran in a primary, lost his primary, but I don't think Robbie should give up. I think Robbie's good, but I don't like what Robbie said here. He's talking about what occurred during the midterms in terms of the blue and red districts, and mentioned something about the red, but you quote tweeted one of them, and what you quote tweeted was Robbie Starbuck saying, "I'm not joking when I say we should 100% abandon hard blue congressional districts inside of hard blue states like New York and California. These districts are never going to flip. Don't fool yourself. Move, have a better life, and make your vote. Plus activism count in a swing district or state." And you responded to that. What happens when Democrats, after having solidified their control over blue districts with no competition, start making inroads in red areas? It's already happening. Where do we run after the takeover? And you happen to know about this living in Texas. Look at Texas. They are trying to turn it purple. Now, thank God Greg Abbott destroyed Beto, but man, those Southern victories by Democrats, yes, one of them is a traditional Democrat that has some right leanings, but still, it is concerning that Texas is turning more and more purple every single election. And, before I let you jump in, I just kind of want to say to Robbie, that's 100% wrong. That's the worst strategy I've ever heard. What we should be doing is we should be telling Republicans on the ground, and David and I should get involved more as well, do what Scott Preslow does, but have some balls when it comes to being in these states. Walk into New York City, walk into a project system, be at the risk of getting your ass beat, and knock on doors and start talking to these individuals about how much better their life can be if they voted Republican. Because you know what? Democrats know they have to do half the walking in the cities. They can hit thousands of people in one day, where Republicans in their, really spread out districts maybe get to a few hundred people in one day because they're walking through suburbia, where people in these cities pick up thousands. And you know what? The first year, You don't get many. You come back again the next year. You come back again the next election. You come back again. You come back again.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Till enough people turn around and go, wait a minute. We've been voting for these people this whole time, and now we're looking around and we're seeing, the whole thing is we see people like us, right? Because that's what Democrats like to say. You need to see people like you because all black people look the same, right?
Yeah.
But
representation. We all look the same.
You all look the same. You all look like freaking gingerbread cutouts, I guess. Like, it's all stupid. I hate that. But it's like, they see people like us. They'll see, people like yourself. We had on Adam Coleman not too long ago. They'll see, representatives in Congress and congressmen, black people in there, and so many more black people running for Republican. And if you keep on going and knocking on their doors and being brave and risking your life, quite literally risking your life for what you believe, things are going to get better. That's the only way to chip away. And I live in New York, so I know that's how it has to get done. It's the only way for me.
Exactly. And I'm originally from Southern California. I'm born and raised, so I know what it's like to be in a blue state, definitely. And when I saw that tweet, he's not the only one who has expressed that sentiment. I see that coming from people like Ben Shapiro and others, and I just don't agree. Now, to me, it's like if you're a conservative and you live in Southern California, and you just can't take it anymore. You want something better for your kids. I'm not going to tell those people, oh, well, stay there and just fight. You know what? If it's your kids and stuff like that, I get it. I moved out of California before it became cool. So, I get it. I wanted more opportunity here in Texas. But for the ones who can stay and might be willing, and I know people who are still in California and fighting, and I'm really also speaking to the GOP itself. You don't win a war by remaining in constant retreat. And, I retweeted Robbie Starbuck, and he responded back, and I got what he was saying. He was saying, I'm talking more about going to places where we can fortify and to fortify our position to make sure that the left isn't spreading, because he was answering my question. What happens when they start following us, basically? But to me, and I responded back, and I haven't checked yet to see if he hit me back. But I'm like, that the thing is that what you're suggesting is that we need to stay on defense and just remain in perpetual defensive mode. That's not how we win. You have to think offensively. Like if you're in a boxing match and all you're doing is defending, but you're not punching, eventually you're still going to get knocked out. It may take a little bit longer, but you're going to hit that canvas eventually. So Democrats don't think this way. Nope. Democrats are like, we need to go into places even that are red, and they're having some success. When you hear about drag queen story hour or drag queen shows for kids, what is the number one state where these news reports are coming from?
Tejas.
It ain't New York. It ain't California.
David, you like
it
that.
Ain't Oregon. It ain't Washington. It is the Lone Star State, the state that has provisions to secede from the Union. It's happening here. So, because they've already got the schools in California locked down. Same thing with New York. So they have to spread. There's a reason why I almost had to call Beto O'Rourke my senator. And I get that most of his support, his funding came from outside of Texas. Okay, I get that. But it should not have been that close. It should not have been that close. Ted Cruz beat him, by a few points, but it should not have been that close. Democrats don't have this defeatist mindset. Oh, we'll never make inroads in Alabama or Kansas. They've got this woke stuff going on in Idaho. So we need to stop fooling ourselves into thinking, well, if we just get more red people to red states, everything will be okay. Oh, we'll have this national divorce. Come on now. This is a fantasy. Let's get into reality. This is a war. You don't win by constantly retreating and retreating and retreating and retreating. Where else are we going to go when they keep taking ground? Because every time you retreat, you're ceding that ground. You're giving them that territory. Yep. So then you go to the new place and they come, oh, well, let's give them this and they'll be okay.
Appeasement doesn't work.
Appeasement doesn't work. It's like I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to, and I'm probably going to tell you. These people are like Neville Chamberlain. This is the Neville Chamberlain approach to U.S. politics today. So no, we don't need to retreat. As a matter of fact, if people want to move, fine, but we still need to be making inroads in these communities, blue areas. I mean, I'm talking about a bigger tent. They'll talk on one hand about how we're making inroads with Latinos. Well, do you think they did that by running away? No. The Republican Party was pouring money, and they've been pouring money into that for years. This isn't just all of a sudden. I mean, you've got Black women and Black men. I have the numbers in front of me. I'm from CNN Politics. From 2018 to 2022, Democrats dropped in support among Black women by 7 points in these midterm elections. Black men, from 2018, they had 76% Black male support. In 2022, they had 65%. It dropped by 11%. Wow. This is not the time to retreat. Yeah. Let's talk about Latinas. 47% in 2018. Latino women. 2022, 33%. Latino men. 2018, it was 29%. 2022, they lost 8 percentage points.
I'm offended. You didn't say Latinx as a Latino, and me and my brother Latino. You didn't say Latinx. I'm offended.
I thought about it, but I'm like, I know you're away in New York, but I don't want you coming down here in Texas to come deal with saying some stupid shit like that. but that's the point. I mean, we have opportunities. Why not take them? I mean, you look at even the school stuff. Democrats don't like transing kids. I'm talking about your regular run-of-the-mill Democrat voter. They don't like that either. So instead of retreating, why don't we exploit our opponent's weaknesses? They're doing it to us. Yes. Let's do it to them. So this whole defeatist mindset, this whole let's run away, that ain't going to work. That you're just delaying the inevitable. You got to stand and fight. Make them defend themselves.
Yep. That's the craziest part is you're bringing up all the numbers, you see all the dropping percentages. Like these people want to go somewhere else at this point. All you have to do is talk to them. All you have to do is talk to them. Because if we we talk so much about how bad cities are and, they seem to have gotten worse than what they previously were. Wouldn't the people in the cities want someone to kind of help them out in that front? You would think so. So why wouldn't you try to go and just say, hey, listen, things aren't good. It's not going to continue to get better voting for the same person. So why don't you try me out? Just saying that to someone might affect them in some way. And you get one person that talks to another person and it just works out, especially in a city. You're all next to each other. So
you're stacked on top of each other.
Exactly.
And over time, you make a difference. And the thing is, I always say, we're going to take some L's at the beginning, but we'll also take some W's too. 100%. I know that Jalen Johnson ran for a local office in Albany, Georgia, and 70% Black district. And he's a Black guy, but he's a conservative. He won. He won the Black vote. And, it can happen. But what he did is he knocked on doors. He focused on younger Black men. He talked to them face to face instead of from on TV. It's not rocket science. It's not. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not. This isn't rocket science. You don't need a genius level IQ to figure this stuff out. You just have to have the balls and the motivation to put in the effort. Yeah.
And that's also what we do need. I'm not saying that, I want a bunch of pasty white Christians in polos walking into the New York City, ghettos, and things like that in the projects. That would be stupid. We would need support from a lot of our Spanish and Black conservatives that are willing to go in there and put themselves out there and get the ridicule. Now, I want to say something.
But here's the thing, just real quick. Yeah, they don't get ridiculed.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
No, they talk to each other on a real level.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get some pushback, maybe, but I've talked to Black candidates who have ran as conservatives in Chicago, Baltimore, and elsewhere, and they say, they'll tell me that they've never seen a Republican there before, but they're willing to hear me out. They're not getting doors slammed in their faces. They're not getting beaten up. That's not happening. I mean, even back in '94, I always bring this up, and I always will. I mean, they don't always have to even be Black or Hispanic. Governor Mike Huckabee won 50% of the Black vote in Arkansas as a pasty white Republican.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no excuse.
It's a coup to known that actually talking to people would get them to like you in some way. That's insanity. It's not something that out of left field. It's just effort and motivation to get it done. And you know what? You lose, but you got some people to think about long term as well.
Yep.
So
you don't conquer new territory by retreating.
No.
You have to go in there, and you got to be willing to take that risk and to take your lumps and to keep pushing towards victory.
Speaking of territory and the national divorce crowd on the right, and it grows more and more all the time, and it's become the dumbest populist movement that there is on the right now, because there's a few reasons why it's stupid. David, we've talked about this. One, the Republicans didn't really think that at the beginning of a war, if there was ever a real war, that we like guns, we'd win really easily, right? That's really the thing. Pardon my French, you fucking idiots. They have big tech. You think we're not getting drone bombed? You think that they wouldn't do that to all of us? No problem. So, number one, we might outlast them in the beginning, but it'll be a struggle. Number two,
and they have guns too.
They have guns too, and there's a lot.
They don't want us to have them, but they have them. I guarantee.
Exactly. And number two, say we did go peacefully. We went to two separate states. We kept the United States of America because we really like this country. They became the People's Republic of America because they're basically China, and they both split, right? So it happens that they start to go to shit expectedly. They would be a terrible country. We'd have our flaws still, but we'd be more free. We'd be able to do things, right? What would happen, Jeff? What would happen? Those people in the People's Republic of America that are suffering would walk over to our border and say, hey, remember when we were Americans too? We want to get away. Will you please take us back? And because people on the right believe in freedom, believe in this type of shit, if they came over, what would we say? We'd say, you know what? Yes, they were our fellow Americans. Come on over. We never wanted this. Your side pushed this, but yeah, and we'll start accepting them and accepting them and accepting them. And what's going to happen? They're going to start voting. And what are they going to start voting for? The same shit that they left, because we see it going on in California, New York, all these places where the exoduses occur, and then they start voting for those nonsense policies. It's going on in Texas right now. And why are we not taking these context clues? And I don't want to hear any of these, conservative pundits saying, no, we'd be tough. No, you would not. No, you would not. Unless you are sitting here and making this country and officially exiling any of the UTA party members in Congress, like Mitch McConnell, McCarthy, all of them, Lindsey Graham, out forever. We wouldn't do that. That's not what the right does. And, and it's not, the new right likes to talk tough. They're not going to do it. They're not going to, because they believe in freedom and they believe in the Constitution. And unfortunately, believing in that means having compassion for people. It's how we work. So we would be infiltrated from the inside out because we're a bunch of gullible suckers. It would never work. It is such a dumb concept.
Well, but even on top of that, I mean, we call these people authoritarians, and a lot of them are, like the Marxist crowd. They are authoritarians, and they like to force people to do what they want. Do you really think they're going to tolerate a national divorce?
No.
At some point, they're going to want to take us over. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so it doesn't, like, to me, I don't really even entertain the national divorce conversation because, first off, it's not realistic. I'm not sure even how that would work. I mean, you could argue that maybe that's kind of already happening because a lot of people are moving to red states. And a lot of these people moving from California aren't liberal. I mean, because I do think that's happening where they vote for the same stuff. But I was a conservative when I moved to Texas. I mean, people don't know this, but there's a lot of conservatives in California. If you go between all that area between Los Angeles and San Francisco, you might as well be in Texas.
It's the same thing in New York.
Honestly,
it's the same thing in New York. If you go anywhere between the city, Albany, Syracuse, and Buffalo, if you look at a New York map of the race between Hochul and Zeldin, it's red. Very red, except for New York City, Albany, Buffalo, Syracuse, and a few other cities. Even Long Island is deep red. So it's like there's a lot of red. But yeah, you're right. It's the cities that make a big deal. But that's exactly why what we were just talking about. We need to make inroads in the cities.
Yeah. And I do think the national divorce topic is very interesting because the main reason why you have that thing talked about is because you're so afraid of the federal power that we have. Because obviously it's gotten a little bit too powerful, and that's why you're so afraid of it. And you're talking about national divorce, and really it's honestly more like a states' rights argument, where if the federal power wasn't so large and the states had more of their power left, we wouldn't even talk about national divorce. There'd be no reason. There'd be absolutely no reason to talk about it at all. So, I mean, I would vouch for saying, hey, it's not really going to happen. No one seems to ever do it, but strip some of the things away that the federal government has.
Convention
and then you don't
of
even need to
states.
talk about,
Convention of states is what we really need. We really need to have a convention of states. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
That would be the best case scenario.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, do we really want that? I mean, even people on the right. I mean, how seriously do you think this is? Are you just saying that this is a dire threat to our freedoms?
Yep.
Are you just saying that because you're just repeating what people are saying, or do you really believe that? Because if we really believe it, we would elect people who would strip down the federal government. And because, David, you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
it's that federal power. I mean, it's like conservatives just woke up to the fact that the FBI is corrupt. Dude, really? Like, I go on black media a lot. I go on Fox Soul, and when the FBI raided Trump's home, and it's funny how people will kind of switch up on the FBI when it's good for them. But people on the left were like, oh, yeah, FBI, great. Yeah, they raided. And they're like, oh, and now the conservatives are saying defund the FBI. And I was like, yeah, they're hypocrites, but you're not talking to a hypocrite here. I would have been for defunding the FBI before all of this. It's been corrupt since its inception. You ever hear about J. Edgar Hoover? You ever hear about COINTELPRO? You ever hear they were conducting surveillance on Aretha Franklin. Oh my God, the Queen of Soul. Like, what was she up to? I mean, come on now. And so to me, it's like we need to stop revering these federal institutions. It's not just the FBI. I mean, Department of Justice, Department of Education, all this stuff was never meant to be.
And and even when it goes to just back the blue, blindly back the blue. Me and David did a whole episode on this and pissed some people off. No, you do not blindly back the blue, because who's the first people to start to do authoritarian mandates? The police, and we saw it during COVID. You don't just blindly back the blue. You back good cops and you back the good people that are cops. You do not back all cops, because not all cops are good, because they're just like anybody else. They fear for their job and they're going to do what they have to for their job. It's like, Germans, we love to villainize the Nazis. A lot of those people were scared shitless. I am not defending what the Nazis ended up doing, but those soldiers, I know we said just following orders is not, what you call it, the convention, your following orders isn't a legitimate excuse, and it's not. Yeah, but at the same time, when you look at it in context, and me being a history major, I read the primary sources from some of these soldiers a lot of times, and one of the things my professor liked to do is he would just put a blank primary source. We didn't know where the soldier was from, and he would say, we'd read it, and he would say, okay, guess Allied or Axis, and we'd guess. And it would be ridiculous. They would say the same thing, Jeff. They were all saying the same thing. This war sucks. I miss my family. I wonder if they're alive. This needs to end. That's what they were all saying. And these are in both world wars. The foot soldiers are the ones that got screwed. And I'm not defending anything, but it's just, it's all ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't back the blue. I mean, we had this defund the police movement, and I'm like, do you really think that the left doesn't want police? Do you really think that these people who you call Marxist authoritarians who want a revolution don't want police to be a thing?
They want their police.
No, they don't want local police to be a thing. They want to federalize the whole thing. That's the end goal. Because you have to have police if they're going to enforce their will on us.
Oh, you mean like when Obama wanted to make the SEIU a police force within like his first 3 months of being a president, and people actually shot that down? People forget that Obama flat out tried to give the SEIU, the biggest union in the country, and make them a military force basically for his use.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So you can't say that you just back the blue. I mean, these are government officials. You can't say that you distrust the government and you're against tyranny, but these people who wear badges and have guns are somehow Jesus Christ. Yeah. No, you need to distrust them. You need to have that same energy for your local police department that you do for the FBI, that you do for the IRS, Department of Education, all of that stuff. Yes, most officers, fine people, they're just trying to do their jobs, but they have been granted the authority to violate our rights when they deem it necessary. So you need to place them under that same level of scrutiny. So we have to get out of that mindset.
Absolutely. So before we've had a great conversation so far, Jeff. I've loved having you on. I feel like we could talk. I know, right? I feel like we could talk for hours on end. Before we go, though, I do want to get your opinion on what went on with Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets. You wrote a fantastic satire piece about all the things that Kyrie Irving had to fulfill in order to get back into basketball. And I really hope people thought it was legit. And I laughed hysterically. But go read that. Go look at this matter and go read his Kyrie Irving parody. It's fantastic. But overall, I want to get your real opinion on not only, less of what Kyrie Irving did, because, again, I don't know. I want to get your opinion on what he did and then what the league is doing to him currently.
Yeah. So, I mean, to understand Kyrie, you have to understand Kanye, because that's really what a lot of this led to. Kanye said some stuff, and then Kyrie Irving, I mean, he's always had some different types of beliefs, and I don't know exactly what his religious beliefs are.
He says he's an omnist, which I actually believe Kyrie when he says he's an omnist, that he just takes everything from everyone's faith and kind of makes it his own.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe he's taking a little bit from the Black Hebrew Israelites, and theologically, I don't agree with him. But here's my thing with the Kyrie Irving situation. It was a bad idea to tweet that link to that movie. Now, I'm not saying he was wrong. I'm saying it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
I'm like, Kyrie, these people, you've got a target on your back. You don't just tweet some stuff like that. But I mean, I get it. But here's my thing. He didn't, as far as I know, he didn't give a bunch of commentary on the movie. He didn't write a whole post about it. He didn't, go on TV and say, I saw this movie and I loved it, and this was what I loved about it. He just tweeted out a link. Just for his followers. I tweet stuff that I don't agree with. Sometimes I may say I don't agree with it. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just hit the retweet button. But that's all he did. He posted a link to this documentary, and I haven't seen it, so I'm going to use the word allegedly, but it has allegedly anti-Semitic material. It allegedly promotes the viewpoint that Black people are the original Hebrews, the original Jews, and the Jews that we have today aren't real Jews, yada, yada, yada. Now, he even said later that he doesn't agree with everything that's in the film. I kind of think that he probably didn't really even watch the film. I mean, I've heard from other people who watched it that it was very poorly made, that it was, kind of crappy. But from what he was saying, he was just looking up the word Hebrew or something like that, and that came up, and so he shared it. Then they cracked down on him. And I'm like, okay, you have absolutely no evidence that Kyrie Irving is an anti-Semite. He didn't espouse, unless there's something that I don't.
Well, even if he is an anti-Semite, why does that matter if he's not acting on it? It's wrong to be an anti-Semite, but you're not going around killing Jews if you just don't like them. I don't agree with that. I think it's a stupid position.
Yeah.
But we're in America.
but here's and I did a Twitter Spaces on this last week, because we are all about free speech, but there's also freedom of association, which isn't explicitly in the Constitution, but the courts have interpreted the First Amendment to mean that you have the right to associate with who you want to. Now, obviously, this applies to the government, not being able to punish you for associating with somebody. But you've got the letter of the law and you've got the spirit of the law. Free speech, there's a spirit behind that First Amendment. So to me, it's like, when I think about that, I was like, if I had a company, would I hire a member of the KKK to work at it if they're out there talking about how they hate Black people?
Probably not.
I wouldn't. And if I had an employee that came out like that, I'd fire him. I mean, come on, we all would do this. And I think that's okay. But in this instance, this is not what I'm talking about here. I mean, because I understand why the NBA wouldn't want to associate with somebody who doesn't like the Jewish people. I get that. And for that matter, if I hired a Black person and they said, I hate white people, I'd fire that person too, because I don't want to associate with that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to try to use a government against him. He can go live his life, but I just don't want to be involved with that. But that being said, again, that's not what we're talking about here. He posted a link, and again, no evidence that he's anti-Semitic. He apologized, and maybe it wasn't the apology that they wanted, but he obviously was trying to say, maybe that wasn't a great idea. He offered to donate $500,000, to whatever he agreed to donate it to, and that still wasn't good enough. And to me, It was absolutely absurd. It was ridiculous. I don't know what his beliefs are, but that was wrong. The way they're treating him is wrong. So I did write that satire piece that basically he had to convert to Orthodox Judaism in order to be able to play in the NBA, because that's how absurd this whole thing is. But I have a little tinfoil hat theory about this. I think if he had taken the vax, this wouldn't even be an issue.
Nope.
That goes back to what I was saying before about the Joe Rogan thing. That wasn't about the N-word. Mm-hmm. That was about the COVID pandemic and the vaccines. Mm-hmm. And honestly, same thing with Kanye. And yep. Kanye, I will criticize way more than I criticize Kyrie Irving. That's a whole other thing. But again, would this be happening if he had never put on that red hat and never associated with Candace Owens?
No shot.
There would be some outrage, but not nearly what's happened.
Yes. In fact, that's actually what I was going to bring up, because people are acting like this is something new, even among black celebrities in totality. I mean, Kendrick Lamar literally on multiple verses, he's talked about being an Israelite now. Like, and you can just go through a plethora of, I mean, Steven Jackson and Nick Cannon came under hot water for that. And Nick Cannon actually lost some things, but he's okay. Fine.
And with the influence of Nation of Islam too, and Louis Farrakhan, which a lot of them do speak on as well.
Yeah, exactly. But Charlemagne the God said some similar type stuff. Yeah. Nobody said anything about that.
Yes, exactly. And that's the whole thing is like, I don't know where it's coming from that so many people acting like this is really that new, because it's not. It's not new at all. This, in fact, it's just something that's been there for a while.
So and you guys are in New York, so you've probably run into some Black Hebrew Israelites.
And I hate that the ADL got involved, the Anti-Defamation League, because something? Here's the real question. I put this on Twitter too. What if Kyrie Irving actually believes in Black Hebrew Israelite? What if this is his religion? Mm-hmm. What if he firmly believes that? Mm-hmm. Does he not have a freedom of religion now? Whether you're offended by the tenets in his religion, there's people offended by Sharia law and Muslim. Now, I happen to defend Islam constantly, because if you ever read anything about Islam, you know that it's split up into sections. That is Muhammad the warrior that talks about Sharia. And then there's a whole bunch of different sections where we actually denounce the Sharia later. But the people are offended by it. Should we now just ban all Muslims? Practicing Muslims that are devout? No. So, like I said, Kyrie said this isn't his religion. He's an omnist. He likes to look for it. But what if this was Kyrie Irving's religion? Are we now going to sit there and grill every single black person and say, if you have Black Hebrew Israelite beliefs, you cannot be here? Is that where we're going right now? And it seems a little ridiculous. It is a religion. I mean,
even if you're a Christian and let's say you don't believe homosexuality is right, I mean, you better keep that to yourself, because you will get targeted if you say that. And and I don't believe in being a jerk about stuff like that. But at the same time, I mean, it's like even with freedom of religion. And somebody brought up this point: could Kyrie Irving sue the NBA for discriminating against him on the basis of religion if he actually believes in that religion?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you should be free to practice your religion without being discriminated against. But then I don't know. This would probably create a whole new case law. I don't know, but. It's an interesting concept.
It would definitely be interesting. And, but one thing I think we saw as a lesson here is look at Kanye, even, look at people like Nick Cannon, and in a way, look at Kyrie, even though Kyrie did meet with Adam Silver today or yesterday, and they said it was productive. It looks like he's on his way to coming back to the Nets again. He's like rubber, he bounces back. But what do they do? They keep it moving, right? Kyrie, he did his apology, but he keeps it moving. Kanye doesn't apologize to anybody. Nick Cannon just said, maybe if people were offended, I'm sorry for that. He didn't apologize for his beliefs. They all just keep it moving. And that's the way that I see that you battle with the mob. It doesn't matter who you are, how you are, what you say, what you do. And I'm pretty sure, you being a black conservative has definitely experienced some of the mob. They say the tolerant, non-racist leftists say the most vitriolic things to black people that don't just toe the line and go Democrat. I've seen it myself.
They do.
So, I feel like that's just the best way to do it. Do you agree with that? Just keep it moving. Don't even apologize. Just keep it moving and keep doing you.
I mean, especially if you have FU money and keep them. I know Kanye lost a lot of that FU money, but still, I mean, he's fine. He'll be fine. This will blow over. America's
get it all back.
Span is very short. So, I mean, apologize if you think you should. If you feel you feel bad. Like, I wasn't mad at Joe Rogan when he apologized for the N-word videos. I was not offended by them, but I know for a fact that Joe Rogan would not have apologized if he didn't mean that shit. Like, he felt bad. I believe him. I think he he is an honest guy, and he was the first person to say, "Screw you, I meant what I said, and that's it." So yeah, keep it moving, especially if you have the money to do so. What I worry more about, though, is that we talk about cancel culture and how it applies to celebrities, but I think this is going to be the next big thing. I mean, because this is in the workplace right now. There are groups formed to defend people who maybe express some views on social media outside of their workplace, had a coworker pick it up, got them fired. And these are just mainstream political views that they just didn't like. So I think we're going to see this culture war translate into the workplace too, because it's happening now, but I don't think most people know about it. But this is going to be another topic of the discussion coming up, probably in the next year or two.
Yeah, David and I run that exact risk every week. This isn't our 9 to 5, but we feel strongly about, coming out there, talking to people like yourself and, really trying to continue to fight for our beliefs because we have the ability to. This is the time to do it. So, yeah, we're out here trying. Eventually, we'd love to make it our 9 to 5, but it's not for now. So, yeah, it is what it is. But, yeah, Jeff, really enjoyed the conversation, man. Like I said, I think we can go for like 9 hours here. I had lots of fun.
Yeah, me too. This is great.
Cool. David, do you have anything else to add to ask Jeff before we jump off?
Nah, this has been a great conversation. Like you said, the time's flown by. I really feel like we could have talked about everything. I mean, we didn't even get to much in the midterms, honestly. We didn't even talk about Fetterman and Oz.
No, we did not. We really didn't. We got into a lot of good stuff. But Jeff, I certainly want to have you back on in the near future. I think that'll be a good thing. So again, he is Jeff Charles, host of a Fresh Perspective podcast. Can they find that anywhere? Is that on all platforms?
Yeah, so that's on YouTube, but that's where I do most of my interviews. Also, my audio podcast, you can get that on whatever podcast app you use. So I have both. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff on the Right. If you want to check out my satire, you look up the Smattering on Substack, or you can go to smatteringnews.substack.com.
Or just go on to Jeff's Twitter. He's always doing some great stuff there. Jeff at Jeff on the Right. It's fantastic over there. You could see his writing in Red State, Liberty Nation. So again, Jeff, it was so much fun. Really appreciate you for coming on. Again, everybody, go like, share, follow, subscribe, give us all some good stuff. Find us on social media, and we will be back next week, everyone. So long, y'all.